Hey guys, this is your host Nitin Binhani and a very warm welcome to my startup podcast channel Jazair Audio, where we share real stories with real learnings. Now we all know that Y Combinator introduced the SAFE, that is Simple Agreement for Future Equity, in late 2013, and since then it has been used as the main instrument for early stage fundraising. In India, seed investor 100X.VC introduced iSAFE back in 2019, which is more India specific than its US counterpart. And thus in today's podcast, I invited Shashank Randev, one of the founding member of 100X.VC, to share his insights on iSAFE Note, its key differentiation, and the terms that are usually covered in it. So, let's welcome today's special guest. Hi Shashank, welcome to Jazair Audio. Great to have you here.
Hi Nitin, thank you so much for inviting. I'm delighted to be here.
Let's start with, why does it make sense for the entrepreneurs to raise early stage capital via SAFE Notes?
So I think this is slightly a longish answer, but it boils down to the vision behind launching the iSAFE Notes, which is India's simple agreement for future equity by 100X.VC. And I think we realized that, India is a growing ecosystem. All 5 partners at 100X.VC have had their own journey in terms of engaging over the last 1 decade with multiple starters who've now gone on to become unicorns. And what we realized is that now in 2021, but when we launched the fund in 2019, that year was seeing the next wave of evolution in terms of where our startup ecosystem was, in terms of, the number of startups which are coming about. And obviously, since the quantity and quality of startups were increasing, the big challenge which we were seeing in the ecosystem was that founders who have a great idea and are trying to build something but require some small capital, let's say as low as 10 lakhs and as high as 1 crore. They were essentially going through a shareholders agreement, which by the function of the shareholders agreement requires you to value the company. And hence, we felt that, companies should not be asked to value themselves when they really want to set something up, they want to launch something. So the availability of raising, capital through SAFE Note was quite clear. And we decided to launch it and encourage founders to use the SAFE Notes. And 100X is the only fund right now which does all its investments through SAFE Notes. The reason for that is it helps founders raise capital very quickly, as low as 10 days. In fact, once the due diligence is covered, it boils down to 24-hour wire transfer. But the agreement in itself is very, very simple. It doesn't let you value your company now. It's for a future equity. It enables founders to raise capital so that they can start building out their proof of concept. And hence, it's an optimum tool to kind of, raise money from when entrepreneurs are trying to start their journey.
So what is a SAFE Note, and is it similar or different to a convertible note or a compulsory convertible debentures?
So see, SAFE Note has been quite an active tool in the US. It's a simple agreement for future equity, and it's been utilized by Y Combinator a lot. And in India, we use iSAFE, which is, in comparison to what convertible note or compulsory convertible debentures are. This one converts into a convertible preference share, CCPS.
Okay.
And the difference between convertible note is obviously there's a limit. In India, how much you can raise, there's a bare minimum, I think 25 lakhs for that. Convertible debentures at the end of the day is debentures or debt, and therefore the safest and the cleanest is CCPS route. And that is what SAFE Notes are right now, and it's becoming really popular in the early stage ecosystem when you're wanting to raise your first check. Obviously, larger funds, pre-Series A to Series A, still prefer to do shareholders agreement, and it is valid to do a shareholders agreement at that stage because the company is grown, company has a valuation, and there are metrics which can measure the inherent value of the company.
So is iSAFE essentially a CCPS?
Correct. A condensed version of CCPS which doesn't let the investors hold any rights, no board seat, very simple instrument, founder friendly, enabling founders to kind of go ahead and raise capital. Very, very.
What about the various terms that are usually covered in a SAFE Note?
So, what we've done is the objective of democratizing this entire process is to make it open source, right? So all our iSAFE documents are uploaded on our website. And as simple as you take the money right now and it gets converted whenever you raise a price round or a shareholder round. So whenever that first episode happens, which should be happening at a pre-Series A, is when the equity gets converted. And that's the crux of the agreement. Within that, obviously, founders are not arm twisted. There are no clawback clauses. There are no rights which hold the founders. In fact, to the extent iSAFE agreement by 100X, doesn't even hold the founders accountable or liable. We don't hold any board seats. In any eventuality if the investment doesn't succeed, it's essentially a write-off from our end. But the core objective of this is that, can you enable this for 100 companies a year, and hoping that, maybe 50 might not work out, 25 not work out, but at least 10 eventually then end up becoming unicorns. And that's where the success of the entire model lies. That's the first point. Second point, obviously, is you're empowering and enabling founders to experiment for the first time, right? With the ability of investing, raising money through a safe mode. If they do end up securing, let's say, 1 crore or 2 crores, and it happens to be to a shareholders round, they're still not very clear of how the modalities will work out, right? So it's a great instrument for first-time founders to kind of quickly focus on their product, the solution, their product and their GTM, rather than focusing on my valuation is this, my valuation is that, and this is the liquidation preference, so this is that. You don't need to do that when you're starting out. Right? You need to think about these things only when a pre-series A round comes in. And hence, the safe instrument, which is very founder-friendly, no rights and no board seats, and the closure process is very soon, the ideal instrument for it. And hence the terms are very, very simple.
So besides valuation cap and discounts, are there any other terms that are covered in iSAFE, and what are considered to be the standard market practices?
No, so I think the valuation cap is mutually agreed upon an incoming investor and a startup, right? Depending on where they are at. And a discount usually ranges as low as 15% and as high as 25%. This is again standard market practice. And this is how it essentially comes down to. It's the same methodology in terms of a convertible note or a compulsory convertible debenture, but again, not having debt on your balance sheet. It's as simple as whenever you raise the next price round is when you get converted at a particular valuation cap and a discount. Now, the fascinating part about this is that 100X invests in these companies, and whenever they raise money post 100X investment at a VC pitch day, there's a standard valuation which the founders can decide. And it allows any type of investor to directly invest into the company at that standard valuation cap, which is a democratization of the process, because today you don't need to be a part of an angel network. You don't need to be part of a syndicate to invest into any company. If the founder is aware of the safe instrument, they can just present that to you as an aspiring angel investor or seasoned angel investor, and you can just sign the document and directly invest into the company. And voila, you're an angel investor in that company.
Now, some founders see great potential risk in using SAFE. In your opinion, how should they be watchful of it?
To be very candid, Nitin, I think, and I can't really comment about, how there were some issues in Y Combinator's SAFE note as the companies grew. But what we did was, when we were launching this, and as I mentioned, this was largely to keeping in mind the Indian ecosystem. And we realized that this needs to be a document which enables them to raise pre-series and series A, besides the fact that they've done well, also not end up diluting too much. So the core objective was, in India, what we've seen is a lot of founders end up diluting equity to advisors, friends and family right up front. And that causes a lot of issues. But in terms of iSAFE, what we did when we launched it, we actually got a legal firm before we launched the fund. We actually consulted, and this document is in compliance with the Indian laws, and hence converts into a condensed version of a convertible preference share, not even a standard convertible preference share, which doesn't give you as an investor any rights. It enables you to provide capital to the founders quickly, but for a promise of an equity whenever they raise a price round. It's as simple as. So currently iSAFE, it's only been 2 years. We've done 50 odd investments. We're just announcing the next set of investments very soon. And our companies have gone ahead and raised capital from larger institutional investors like Sequoia, Lightspeed Ventures, Flexa VC. And the model seems to be working out right? And some out of the 50 companies, each are right now raising their Series A, which is a 2 million to a 10 billion round. And that is happening. And so the process of enabling early stage founders is taking place through these 50 odd companies, right? So on iSAFE, there aren't any challenges. I can't really comment on Y Combinator's SAFE note because they would be in compliance with the US law, and those are very, very different over there.
Finally, how many startups have used iSAFE so far? Also, if you could share some of the success stories.
So great question. Let me give you a quick overview of what has happened over the last 2 years. We launched the fund in July of 2019
Okay.
with the objective of investing in 100 companies a year. That being said, we've done only 50 investments in 2 years now, and that also being a function of COVID, largely because we wanted to understand which companies to back so that we can add value. So we did 20 investments in September of 2019, and our companies ended up raising roughly $2.5 million cumulatively. And then we were all scheduled to do next set of 20, 25 investments in March, but then COVID happened. And as a young fund, we wanted to ensure that what is the short-term value, 60 to 120-day value, which we can bring onto the table so that they can go ahead and raise more capital. So with that, we worked head down with our portfolio companies and only invested in August of 2020, which was a class 02, a set of 9 companies, followed by set of 10 companies in December of 2020, and followed by a set of 11 companies in class 04 in March of 2021. So hence a cumulative portfolio size of 50. Now out of these 50 companies, all of them have gone ahead and raised capital, and the cumulatively over the last 1.5 years, they've raised upwards of $18 million. We've seen the likes of Sequoia, Chirate, Lightspeed Ventures, 100X.VC's, Startup Exceed, a bunch of family offices, including Nestvadia, and marquee angel investors, the likes of Anupam Mittal, KRS Jamwal, Neeraj Roy, so on and so forth. And out of these 58 are now already geared up for their Series A round. So what happened was when we invested, the immediate next round was a pre-Series A. Overall, on an average now, 100x portfolio companies end up raising an average 350K to 400K USD within the first 70, 80 days after 100x invests into them. And hence our objective of becoming a discovery fund has come into picture. It's working. All these investments have been through iSAFE. I can give you 2 examples right now. Very early stage companies when we invested in, they were MVP / they had POCs going on. A company called Savo Labs and the other one called Vitra.ai. And we actually thought that they will do well with our capital and we'll work with them for a couple of months before they go on to raise another round. But lo and behold, they ended up raising within 60 days from Savo Labs raised from Startup Exceed, a 5.5 crore check, and Vitra.ai ended up raising from VC, which goes on to show that, the ability to provide quick capital through safe notes in a short time, aspires the founders to double down on the product so that it becomes more tangible. And therefore, it also gets the interest of larger institutional investors because at the end of the day, every investor is scouting for good investable opportunities. And that's the core objective of this, which we feel that can only be enabled through an instrument like iSAFE and cannot be done through a shareholders or an SHA agreement, at least at this level, bottom of the pyramid, a very, very early check sizes.
So with this, we have reached at the end of this podcast. Shashank, it was a pleasure to have you on Cesar Audio, and thank you for sharing great insights with us.
Thank you, Nitin, for inviting me. It was an absolute pleasure interacting with you and looking forward to meeting you and catching up with you soon.
Are you a founder of an early-stage startup and looking to raise funding? Get your startup investor ready before even you start pitching to your prospective investors. For know-how, please visit www.jazaro.in. That is www.jasaro.in.
Lastly, I want to thank all the listeners who took their valuable time to listen to this podcast. Keep rocking, be safe, and don't forget to share.